Hello, my friends, and welcome. Welcome to week 3 of our April Poetry Celebration. I am so glad you're here, and I'm already having so much fun with all of you. I have to say, my friends, you are knocking it out of the park. Now, if you haven't participated yet, I want to be so clear. You are so welcome to jump in at any point. If you want to join us by writing poems, please do. If you want to just listen along, we're so glad you're here. Thank you, everybody, for your participation. I'm Kate Chadbourne, and I'm a poet and teacher, and I'm hosting this celebration in conjunction with the journal makers Jumping Fox Design. They make beautiful tools for writing poetry, writing anything, keeping track of your life, and they are so generously providing the prizes for this celebration. So we're so grateful to them and so happy to be in partnership with them. Well, it has been a fantastic week of poems. You sent in gorgeous poems. Again, I would like to read every single thing that you sent. You might remember our theme for this celebration is people, which is, I think, a really great theme, if I do say so myself. I am so inspired, and it seems that you are too. Last week, our spark and dare were to observe someone doing something and write a poem about it. And we were inspired by Wes's poem, and, well, all of you have come up with all kinds of great poems. I want to start right away with, and I should say Wes McNair, in case Wes McNair, who's sort of our poetry mentor for this celebration, and we'll have more about him in a moment. I want to start with your poems first. Melissa wrote a poem about watching her daughter answer the phone. Now that is fantastic, isn't it? That level of attention to life and that level of attention to the people we love. Here's the poem. I just loved it. Secret conversation before she reaches her phone. Conversation before conversation. No words spoken out loud. Internal, filled with pleasure. Eyes widen, sparkle with light. Smile grows and contracts, surely a pleasant chat. That is just gorgeous. Conversation before conversation. What a great insight that something is already happening as she is moving toward the phone. I loved that. Megan gives us a poem about watching a tennis lesson, and it's full of action and feeling. It's called The Lesson. A lunge to the right, a leap to the left, sneakers squeak, a deft turn for a stroke. You're fast, man, he says as he jumps and dives. Smash! He drives it back. He won't submit. The slice gives the ball a nice little curve, scoring again. The next serve is an ace. Now, going easy and giving some tips, adjusting their grips, rallying with grace. That's a beautiful piece of word music. You can hear all the internal rhymes, the care with rhythm. It actually feels like, I'm no athlete, as probably many of you can guess, but it feels like when you're dashing all over the court and that squeak and turn. Just brilliant, Megan. Such a great piece of observation and wordsmithery. Our dear Mary gives us a poem about observing the people working on her roof, and it's called The Roofers, and I just loved it. I sat in the sun watching the Vasquez family work so hard and so rhythmically to roof my home. Father, son, and uncle working pre-dawn to post-dusk, while the wife, the mother, delivers meals and encouragement. They are hungry for this work after such a long and quiet winter. The joy of work, the joy of the warm sun continued until the sun fell off the roof onto his back. Everyone stopped but the sun. He strongly jumped up to his feet and assured me he was okay, flashing a smile and 2 thumbs up. It is truly our only ability to communicate, smiles and hand gestures. The family continued their expert work. The sun continued to shine, but the fall warned us all of the fragility of life. The roof that protects my home, the work that supports the family, the sun that shines on us all. And this morning, the snow has brought a pause to all of it. What a wonderful slice of life. What a wonderful moment of noticing it all, of going beyond ourselves to notice the people around us, to notice the environment around us. I'm so moved by that. And the way that the weather itself is a kind of person here, and the snow bringing all of this to a pause. And Mary, I'm so happy that the young son is all right after his fall. What a time. Marlena gives us a poem that she, or the speaker of this poem, is in. And it says a lot about people too, I thought. And it's just a tender moment worth noticing. "It's just been a hard month," I said, and grabbed my burrito just as you took my hand. And then we sat for a moment, burrito in my hand in yours. I couldn't help but laugh. Yet your earnest brown eyes gazed through the moment and into exactly what I had told you, and you held me tighter. I held the burrito tighter until rice and beans were dribbling onto the table. And I looked at you and thought, I'll get through this, just loud enough for you to hear. That's beautiful, Marlena. That is a beautiful moment, and it's such a human moment, and it's such a relatable and visual moment of, and that the awkwardness and the tenderness of the burrito in the hand and hand in hand. I loved that. My dear friend Tricia wrote this poem observing her next door neighbor in the garden. It's called Neighbor in Her Garden. I just loved it. It's full of grace, just as so much that my friend writes is full of grace. Neighbor in her garden. Her movements are deliberate and precise, yet also graceful. She steps carefully in her gardening clothes and sturdy shoes, carrying pots and tending just blooming flowers, being careful not to snap or bruise them with her footfall. She is thorough in her removal of the debris of overwintered leaves and sticks that still litter my own gardens. Older than I am envious of her and ache for the ease of her slow-paced but steady efforts, wanting to applaud her from my front stoop, though I would rather be deep in my own neglected beds, rake and trowel in hand, if only my body allowed it. Oh, to smell the rich earth tinged again with lavender and mint and lemon balm, and speak to drowsy bees and nodding daffodils, and to show my love to them in the tending. And so, armed with hope and no small amount of trepidation, I venture out, trowel and rake in hand. So observing other people can be such a source of inspiration, and it is here for Tricia. Observing other people was sort of our prompt, but this poem observes something else, and I just loved it. The title of the poem is "It Isn't People That I Watch Daily," and it is from a wonderful Shanachie, a storyteller, one of the best singers I've ever heard, and poet called June Ruth. So here's her poem. It isn't people that I watch daily. It isn't people that I watch daily, but the wind as it moves through the branches of my merry maple tree, now sporting red leaf buds, looking forward to opening and turning green for summer. I just love that. There's so much hope in it, and the poet's vantage at her window or outside maybe watching this tree, I just loved it. And one more in this vein, and I'm not going to say anything about it because I don't want to spoil anything. It's called Harley, and it's by my friend Anne, who is also a marvelous singer and musician. And mother of, I like to say mother of dragons, but she's the mother of two wonderful young poets. You'll hear more from them. Harley. He spied me right away, and I could tell he was instantly drawn to me. He stared deeply into my eyes as if he were drinking me in. I knew touch was forbidden, perhaps even dangerous. I sang a song, and he danced a wild dance of abandon. His beauty was otherworldly. When I heard him say hello, I was amazed at the power in his voice. I had to be pulled away from his intoxicating presence. And days later, I found myself dancing his unique dance without even realizing it. May you all delight in the exotic presence of a chance meeting with Harley, the Scarlet Macaw. That's so marvelous. I just love that so much. So yes, I have found that I have written a few poems about people who are not actually people. We can't help ourselves. I just love, thank you everybody who sent poems. What a delightful batch of poems. I enjoyed every one of them. I'm the lucky one here who gets to read all these great poems. Thank you for that. If you'd like to send poems this week, actually, I'm going to ask you to send them I'm going to let you or invite you to send them a little bit later if you like. I won't be able to get to them on Friday, so I'd like to give you more time. You're certainly welcome to send them anytime, but let's say up until Sunday, and I think that's the 23rd of April at 5 o'clock. So if you'd like to send poems by Sunday, April 23rd, okay, here comes some cat time for all of us here. Yes, Mishy, good boy. Please do. And thank you everyone for sending them in the body of the email. That's really been such a help for me in saving time. And if you haven't, don't worry, it's okay. But it's wonderful that you do. So thank you. All right. I wanted to read for you a poem from Wes's great book, Late Wonders. This poem actually gives us our spark for next week. And I just want to say that I think there will be more cat activity here. Yes, there will in just a moment. This is just, it's my house. So this is what it's like. A poem can see what is otherwise invisible. And otherwise, we wouldn't have access to the knowledge or the insight without the poem. And that's what this poem is about. Sorry. Oh, goodness gracious. Cat interference. What can we say? This poem is called This Poem. Before the age of doing and photographing and filming and texting what you did, back when people simply did, a girl got married at 17. Recalled tonight under lamplight in my Ozark farmhouse by my old widowed Aunt Dot, the woman who once was her. There were no photos of the girl as she waited in the truck with her first two babies for her husband to come out of the bar until it was dark. And then, in the dark, nobody filmed him at the screen door of the kitchen, walking. I'm sorry. Let's start this again. This cat has rattled me. Please forgive me. And Wes, who may see this later, please forgive me. Let's start again. This poem. Before the age of doing and photographing and filming and texting what you did, back when people simply did, a girl got married at 17, recalled tonight under lamplight in an Ozark farmhouse by my old widowed Aunt Dot, the woman who once was her. There were no photos of the girl as she waited in the truck with her first two babies for her husband to come out of the bar until it was dark, and then, in the dark, Nobody filmed him at the screen door of the kitchen, waking from the spell of his anger with a lead pipe in his hand, saying, "I believe I killed that cow." Or filmed her stepping between his fists and her son on the night he broke her nose. Literal, plain-spoken and sorrowful, Dot seems to find her, the poor young girl, married for life, and him, my uncle, the good old boy everyone loved, including me, in the shadows cast by her lamp and chair, just the three of them there, and me, and the small handheld device of this poem. That is such a powerful poem to me, for so many reasons. In this case, because it imagines the life of another, and because without those things, before we had all of those ways of documenting our lives, what we had were poems. What we still have are poems. And what we have is our compassionate imagination, our desire to imagine what it is like for another person, what their life is like or was like. In this case, Wes's Aunt Dot, who lived through these things. And Wes, in showing them to us through his poem, has done what nothing else could do. We would never have those things. And of course, as we all know, no one would ever post those things, right? On social media, we only post the important, flashy things, or the joyful things, I'll say. But here we're seeing something very important about a woman's life. So that's my spark for us this week is, let's, if you choose, and this is of course optional, let's imagine someone else's perspective. Let's write a poem about someone else's experience or their perspective. See what you make of that. And I hope that is fun. It could be anything you like. All right. I want to share with you a piece of a poem by Adair. And Adair is an actor. Actually, in her email signature, it says actor, writer, unhealthy love of baseball. She writes a lot about baseball. She's an actor in movies and in television and on the stage. She's like us, you guys. She is a person who loves many arts and practices them to a high standard. She has a book of poems called Curtain Speech, an actor's poems about the theater. And she very generously, when I reached out to ask her to share with us, she actually wrote a poem. And it's a really long, wonderful poem called Blank Verse for My Dad. So I'm just going to read a little bit of it. But I just loved it. Her father, who comes through this poem, is just a person we would all want to know. So I'm going to read, this is the second section. My father will hug anyone and mean it. It's like he's making sure your soul stays in. My stepmom always laughs about the time they lectured at a university, and afterward, some undergraduates presented them with mugs. She shook their hands, but then my dad encompassed them with hugs, prolonged, heartfelt, although they had just met. Recently, she talked about a man who sold them both a painting in Brazil. My father speaks no Portuguese, but still, as they were leaving, he embraced the man. The artist cried, "I'll miss you," and he wept. Partly that's Brazil, stepmom explains, but I think the artist saw, as many do, the halo that my father has accrued from the way he listens and he sees. So much love in that. Oh, now I'm going to skip all the way to the end of the poem. It's a wonderful poem, and I'm so glad we have it. Just to finish this off, it's gorgeous. Prison wouldn't really be the worst, not if you had your dad, or I had mine. Isn't that a wonderful thing? Prison wouldn't be the worst, not if you had your dad, or I had mine. But prison's not my weird scenario. An elevator's what I always thought. though trying to describe a talk with God, the travel to the meditative plane. My metaphor is elevator too. Subconscious logic always tells the truth. A person chosen for your elevator car to accompany your spiritual ascent, what better kinship can be signified? In my imagination, my dad smiles and hits the top floor button with his thumb. Someday, the voice of dispatch comes, the lurch, the pulleys grinding in the dark, and we'll move up, laughing, as the numbers climb and get out on the foreign penthouse floor, shiny as a planet, and sneak around looking for the access to the roof. But now, we'll sit in the dimness on the floor, backs against the elevator wall, and we'll talk, the best that living is. The best that living is, talking, being together. Who's in your elevator car? Just marvelous. Well, I want to show you actually, I'm writing steadily. It's been a great week. Just, again, drafty poems. I'm not going to read it, but this is a poem about my father watching Creature Double Feature and how he used to put peanut butter on Ritz crackers and line them up on his legs so that he could eat them all in a row. Why I'm telling you that is that honestly, you can write a poem about anything. I wanted to share my poem log. When I look at this, I see a poem about a barista. I see a poem about my 4-year-old niece, next door neighbor. I see a poem about J.B. Priestley, who's a writer that I wish I were friends with. He's not alive anymore, but he was amazing. I see a poem about the lady who works at the farm stand. I just wanted to encourage you. So this is Jumping Fox Design's great binder, and there are going to be 3 of these for prizes. It's turning out to be a fantastic portable poetry center for me, and I'm bringing it everywhere, and I'm loving the size of the pages. It's just comfortable. I tend to scribble, and I also like that I can move the pages around. So it's really been a great tool for me. So I want to just encourage you, if you haven't, to maybe make a log of the titles of your poems, or even just the first lines if you don't like titles. I think that will be encouraging to you. Even if you have only written a few poems, it doesn't matter, one poem, but start the log. There's something powerful about seeing the list of your own poems. It's almost a table of contents. So I hope you're inspired by that. I want to read to you a poem I wrote about watching a video about watching a boy play the piano. Now, this poem is called Music, and it's dedicated to Philip, who's the boy. Music for Philip. A boy I do not know, or haven't anyway, for years, plays piano on a stage in France. I watch him after the fact on the small screen of my iPhone in a video his mother posted to Facebook. Even at this remove, his poise and intensity move my heart. He is true, all of him, heart and mind and fingers. My eyes brim. Far from Paris and after the fact, I cheer and remember a day at my piano, 10 years gone, when his small, eager hand, soft as fresh clay, found a first melody. We looked at each other, smiling on the shared bench, 2 musicians. Now the boy carries music in himself like a vast endowment of light. And everyone in that hall and many others across miles and years grow richer as he spends it out, note by glistening note. We recognize him in the spending of his gift. We recognize him, and known or not known or remembered, we love him. It's so good, isn't it, to recognize the goodness of people in the world. It is one of the most hopeful things I can imagine. And for me, and I think for you, poetry is the the glass that focuses my attention on these moments and lets me really look at them. And I'm so grateful. I just love all of this, and I love that we're in it together. I did want to just make one amendment. So Wes's, I mentioned last time that Wes has a number of poetry readings coming up. Just to say that his reading on the 20th of April at the Merrill Library, and I'll put this all in the note, has been postponed. They're doing some repairs on the library. So I will give you an update when I hear anything about that. But he does have some dates coming up in May, so please keep that in mind. Finally, I'd love to give you a dare for the week, kind of a different dare, and that is this. Leave a poem in a public place, just for fun. Now, you might type up one of your poems and put it, in a book at the library. You might leave it on a cafe and a table. It could be your poem, it could be a photocopied poem, something that you like. Let's spread the poems around this month, just to share the wealth. I think that would be fun. I'm going to do it. If you do it, please report back, because I want to hear all about your adventures. I think it's fun to go out into the world and share poetry, and just think of all of us doing it together. Many more people will be celebrating poetry. So thank you, everyone, for this wonderful time. Send your poems again by Sunday, and I will be so happy to read them. So I'm wishing you the most wonderful week of poetry, and thank you again. Please, if you will, I'm so grateful for all of you liking the video. That is encouraging. I love your comments. It just lets me know that you're reading and listening and playing, so that's wonderful. And if you can share the video with another poetry-loving person, let's bring everyone in. So thank you again. Have a wonderful week of poems, and I'll see you next week.